Ladies and gentlemen, do you have a little bit of time to talk about brutal death metal or slam? Well, that's the case anyway. I'm assuming you have the time since you're still here. This is NecroticGoreBeast with the new MCD, Brute, straight from Comatose Music, their previous label. Previous by meaning they did some albums with the label already, not saying that it's the album that left them. Oh, so confusing to just go with these kind of silly statements. So here we are, NecroticGoreBeast from Canada, a 4-piece band ever since 2017, 3 albums out and then something else, and now also this MCD of 16 minutes and then some. As you can see, I got this marked copy, jing jing jing, from the label itself. Thanks to them for sending this out for review. As you can see, there's not too much to see, just basic band photo, lyrics and whatsoever, and of course this creature of brutality goes very much with the given music. So, why the story? Why the band is here? The story is, I got to know this band with their debut album from 2019, self-titled, and I remember thinking, this band name is very silly. Can the music be good? That was the time when I was very, very much openly checking out new digital promos and all that stuff. Things got overly flooded, and nowadays I don't really do that. But if I didn't do it back in the days, I probably would not have heard of this band, which is a shame, or would have been a shame, because this is one of my favorite bands from Quebec, and mind you, there are a lot of good black metal bands coming from Quebec. But this is death metal. And like I said, despite the silly name, I fell in love with the band because, well, they delivered. I guess that's the basic take on the given band. And I guess I'm not the only one seeing how highly these are scored on Metal Archives, even if it's just individual reviews here and there. Now, 3 albums in and now then an MCD, their first one. What can we say is, within 8 years, nothing much has really changed. In fact, they have kept their lane so well that it's always a pleasing thing to hear from them, because you can pretty much by this point assume it's gonna be quality, and so it is once again. So there's not much really I can add to the previous works with this given review. As you can see, this being MCD of 16 minutes for 5 tracks is pretty much like you already know the game if you have heard their previous works. If you haven't, well, it's indeed slam/brutal death metal the way it's supposed to be. That means very heavy production supporting the music just greatly, and that is very, very important when we're talking about this kind of music. I mean, there are lots of these old school revival death metal acts which kind of think that, okay, since we're kind of old school band, we can just sound like a demo thing, and oftentimes they just mistake a bad sound for something that was not exactly, acquirable back in the days. When it comes to brutal death metal, however, it's even more important that you actually have a heavy yet powerful sound, which is also something that you can figure out all the instruments to, really support the music. And by that I mean it's very, very heavy slam riffing. It's not overly technical, but it's not really that simplistic, punk riffs and all that stuff. Think about the old school bands, which are very punky by their very nature. So NecroticGoreBeast is obviously tapping between the super highly technical bands, who are also very often brutal death metal, and then again very simplistic ones. And I think they have really found their sweet spot, meaning they know that you need to have a little bit more extra effort than just go with the basic, palm muted riffs and just roll all over it. Meaning, once again, that you need to have this good production, but you also need to have these fascinating riffs. They might not be revolutionary, they might not be reinventing the wheel, but it matters not when you're doing the stuff the right way. And mind you, there are similar old school death metal acts, which I just mentioned, who have also understood the importance of having good riffs and good production, and then also good growly vocals. But NecroticGoreBeast isn't that old school stuff, so once again, then you were asking, what does it mean if it's modern then? Well, it kinda is, meaning it definitely sounds 2000 stuff rather than something from the 80s and 90s. But they are keeping their lane once again, meaning they're not going over the borders, they're not gonna do something else, something unexpected. In fact, in my opinion, they're doing a favor for their fans, including me, because once again, if you want a carton of milk, or if you want just your typical lager beer, then you are gonna buy that stuff if you like it. When it's something different, you're just gonna be disappointed. So for me, I'm just happy that they haven't changed their style. They're more like expanding the lore or, canon of the whole thing here. So they are doing the brutal death metal, in my opinion, as it's supposed to be. Heavy riffs, brutal growling, top-notch production, and that's it. Yeah, surely they could have so-called hit songs and make it even more memorable. That's probably the only so-called downside of the things. This doesn't have those hit songs. And then you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm talking about the hammer smashed faces and all that stuff. But for the given genre, I think NecroticGoreBeast is really doing great job. In fact, I can only hope that they would, include some of the hit songs in the future. But doing one is a whole lot different thing than talking about one. So there you have it. Now, if I got you interested, obviously links are included in the description box for you to check out this band. It's been out since September 12th of 2025, so go ahead, give it a go, and I hope you like it. Bye bye.